So I have a 5-year-old daughter. My wife and I want our daughter to be independent, obedient, structured, yet a free thinker. She has to question the rules but follow them. We want to create a paradox/contradiction of a daughter. But I'm sure we're not alone. What's missing in what I just described is just the context. There's a time and place for being independent, and there's a time and place to be a free thinker. I think there's a time and place for structure and obedience, and also a time and place to follow the rules and even question the exact same rules. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Let's Talk Bible podcast. My name is Misael, and this episode is about what exactly authority is when we look at authority in Scripture.
Welcome to the Let's Talk Bible podcast, the podcast about anything related to God, religion, and of course, the Bible.
As the title suggests, I think that we have a very poor understanding of exactly what authority is. I think that some of us come from misogynistic households. We come from, even if it's not a cultural thing, at times it's even a societal issue where men are just in charge most of the time. I'm not, with that statement, I'm not saying that it's right or that it's wrong. I'm just saying that most of the time men are in charge of most things in most places. So whether it's the man in charge or whether somebody else is in charge, at some point or another, we all have a degree of authority in the roles that we have at work, at home, anywhere. So this is the inspiration for this video. My wife and I are missionaries, and as missionaries, we do home visit Bible studies. And some of the homes we go to are kind enough to offer us a meal while we're there, and this is what happened recently. It was kind of like a barbecue kind of thing that we had after the Bible study. So I went outside with the husband of the house to the grill, and because we had already had the Bible study, our kids were kind of restless. I have a 5-year-old daughter, as I said, but I also have a 1-year-old son, and I'm the kind of person who's very, very introverted. I get very uncomfortable and very anxious around people very quickly, especially if we're not talking about the Bible. So restless kids and being in somebody else's house puts me on edge, and I get very anxious. And then, in my mind, a very unfortunate series of events started to unfold. These are the events. My daughter dropped some food, an accident, and I get it, but it made her feel bad, and she kind of got very quiet and concerned because it was something that she wasn't being careful. She dropped the food. So after that, the family we went to visit, they were like saying it was no big deal, and they were trying to make her be fine and not to worry about it. So they kept asking her questions, trying to get her to speak again. And even when I asked her questions, like trying to get her to speak and be friendly again, she wouldn't answer my questions. And so the whole time this is going on, I'm holding my son because we were outside and he wouldn't sit still, and he bumps my glasses off as I'm holding him, and he thought it was the most hilarious game in the world. And so the rest of the night, as I'm holding him, every once in a while he would try to take my glasses off, and I can't get him to stop, and we're in public, so I can't just put him down because the household doesn't have small children. So you don't notice all the things kids reach and want to grab until you have them. So I mean, it's perfectly understandable. They have their things out, and so I was trying to get him not to want to grab anything, and so he's just hitting my face, trying to knock my glasses off, and my daughter won't listen to me because I'm asking her questions, and she's too quiet and too shy to talk to anybody now. And then later, once we're eating and my daughter has finally regained her courage, she decides she doesn't like hot dogs or hamburgers. And after she takes a bite out of a hamburger, she takes a bite out of a hot dog, and she's done. And why does this matter? Because I'm saying a lot of little things, but again, I'm the kind of person who gets very anxious, and I get kind of like nervous if I'm in somebody else's house and I feel I'm being a hassle. I don't like feeling like I'm being a hassle. So I was going through a crisis. Internally, I was going through a crisis. I just felt so like out of place, and I felt rude, and it was just not good. So I was trying to explain to my daughter that like the food was good and that she wasn't going to have anything else to eat later, so that she had to eat and she didn't care. So she got restless too, and like she's playing with the tablecloth and she wants to go explore the house, and like I just keep telling her that she has to sit still and that we have to wait a little bit. We all have to finish eating, and she keeps and then she started asking me why. I wrote all these things down. I'm actually reading a lot of this because like I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but I was keeping like a mental note of everything that was happening because I felt very like powerless, and I just didn't feel good about everything that was going on. And so in this single evening, my daughter displayed all of the behaviors that I mentioned, but at precisely the wrong time. She was quiet and like she was sitting perfectly still when we wanted her to be confident and talk and be okay with everybody. And then she was questioning me and asking why, and wanting to know all these things about food waste and stuff, when I just needed her to listen to me and do as I said. So, like, as I'm saying all of this, I don't mean to make her sound like she's a bad kid. Of course she's not. She's wonderful. Most of the time, like, she does perfectly fine. Like, it was just an off night, I guess I could say. But as it turns out, it's not even her fault. Because we can easily and oftentimes just blame our kids and just say, well, they don't listen. You know, had she just listened to me every step of the way, everything would have been fine. And I thought to myself, and I considered telling my daughter, you know what, you just always do as I say. From now on, you just have to listen to me because I'm your dad. But thinking back on it and considering, I didn't say this, but and while I consider this, it's not going to help her in the long run, because if I want her to be successful, she has to be able to think for herself and act on her own without my guidance every step of the way, because I'm not always going to be around, and there are a multitude of situations in which she has to figure it out herself. So that's not a solution for me to just say, well, I'm your dad, I'm in charge, you have to listen to me. Because my God-given responsibility as a parent, our God-given responsibility as parents, is not to raise up little robots that just do as I say, but to raise up respectful and free-willed, as we are, human beings, right? And in order to carry out this mission, in order for us to be successful with this responsibility we've been given, God gave us authority. He didn't give us intelligence. He didn't give us experience. He gave us authority. And if anything, if you take anything from this podcast episode, from this video, it's that intelligence without authority is just ideas, opinions. And experience without authority is just good for you. All this means is that if you don't have the authority you need to carry out an idea, then that it just remains an idea. And if you have experience but you don't have authority, then you know what to do, but that doesn't help either if you're trying to raise your children right, or if you're trying to lead a group of others. You need authority. So what's the misunderstanding that we have with authority? I believe that this misunderstanding comes from our earthly structures. Police officers, for example, political parties, politicians that are in charge. Although their motto is correct, for example, police officers, we know that their motto is to protect and serve. And politicians, they're called public servants, but at the end of the day, whatever they say goes. And that authority becomes the platform from which they are elevated above everyone else. So we do as they say because of their authority. And so that's how we come to understand what authority is. But in reality, or God's reality, biblically speaking, authority is not a platform, it's a tool. It's a gift with which we fulfill God's purpose. Our greatest example of this correct authority is Jesus. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25 and 26. He says, "Husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word." So 2 points here. Number 1, Jesus gave himself for the church. He didn't give something else for the church but himself, as if it weren't about him but about the church. In his eyes, the church was worth all of him. Not because he was the one in charge, or not because we're in charge or the head of our household, does that mean that we're above our wife and children. But taking the example of Jesus, our wife and our children are worth all of us. And if it's not a household, but your siblings, or you're a youth leader, a pastor, or it's just somebody given authority, then the people in your group are worth all of you. They're worth your time, they're worth your patience, worth your effort, because they have become your responsibility. And then the second point that we see in this passage, his purpose, Jesus' purpose, was to cleanse and to wash the church. So that he may sanctify her, verse 26, and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word. So Jesus used his place of authority that he had to lead the church, to teach and guide. So because now in our case, because our purpose is to teach and to guide our home, or the people we're responsible for, towards a common goal, or if it's our family, towards God, then we were given authority. Again, not a platform that puts us above anyone, but a tool with which we can work this purpose out. We were given authority that we may establish and set guidelines and the systems necessary for our family or for the group we're leading to be successful. So say you have kids or siblings, and you come into your kids' room or your younger brothers and sisters' room, and there's a hole in the wall, right? And one of your kids, or somebody in the room is holding a hammer. It's probably who you're gonna start with on finding out why there's a hole in the wall. And I'm not saying that they did it, whoever's holding the hammer, I'm not saying that they did it. I'm just saying that it's pretty suspicious that there's a hole in the wall and that they're holding a hammer. And so now say you gave somebody the hammer, right? Before you left the room, no hole in the wall yet. Say you gave somebody a hammer and you say, all right, you're in charge of the hammer. And then you come back and there's a hole in the wall. Well, at this point, because you gave somebody the hammer, it doesn't matter who made the hole. You're going to blame, or the person to blame is the person you entrusted with the hammer. That's all authority is. Authority gives God the right to blame somebody for when something goes wrong. Not a platform. It's just a tool. So see, authority in the example we saw with Jesus, and in the example I just gave about the hammer and the hole in the wall, authority equals responsibility. And responsibility allows for blame. It also allows for praise. If everything goes right, then you know who to praise. You know who set the guidelines. You know who set the boundaries. And if everybody followed them and everybody was successful, then you know who is to praise for it. But a lot of the time we don't use it that way. We ask the person in charge, and then they decide who's to blame. But no, authority, at least in the eyes of God, equals blame and responsibility. So God didn't make you, if you're a man, and I hope that I don't seem outdated with this, but I think that this still applies to many of us who come from, misogynistic is a very strong word, so it might not be that much, but just from homes who were very heavily the man of the house, and I do this because I'm the man. And so it's easy for me to blame the man of the house and to talk directly to the man of the house. So hey, man, God didn't make you the head of the household because you were the smartest, or because you were the oldest, or even because you were the most experienced. He just wanted to make sure that you knew that whatever happened, you'd be the one to blame. So, like what I was talking about with my daughter, if she didn't behave well and if she didn't know what to do, when to do it, it's because I've not placed the systems yet, or the guidelines or the boundaries for her to understand what her behavior should be like in a situation like the one we were in. So if I'm in charge and if I'm the man of the house, then it's my fault, is what I'm trying to say. So because it's going to be my fault, or because it's going to be your fault if your house is not successful, or if your group is not successful, then you need something with which you can point your home and steer your group in the right direction. So God gives authority. So this brings us to what the other half of true authority is. You're not the one deciding the final destination. You're only helping your family get there. So if you work, so this doesn't only apply to a household, it applies to, a group, whether you're a youth leader at a church, whether you're a group leader at a church or a pastor at a church. You're not establishing the final goal. The final goal was set by Jesus. Or even if it's at a company and you're in charge of your coworkers, it's most of the time you're not the one setting the goal. The goal is whether it's profit or whether it's customer service. You're not the one setting the goal, but you're in charge of helping your team get there. That's why you're given authority. So again, earthly institutions will have you think that the person in charge is the one that comes up with the rules or even the goals, but it's not true when it comes to anything spiritual or even just morally right. In a business, if it's your business, yes, you can come up with it all. But in your home, with your wife, with your kids, or with the youth group you're responsible for, the goals and the rules are already there. God is the one who established them. Some of these goals would include things like teaching love, teaching respect, teaching good manners in general. So your authority is given as a tool so that you can establish the systems and structure necessary to lead your home closer to God. My daughter's lack of understanding in how to behave and when was the hole in the wall of her still developing social skills. And it wasn't until I really thought about what to do or how to solve this so that it doesn't happen again in the future that I realized that I was holding the metaphorical hammer. So, or in other aspects of my own personal life, my home's tendency to sleep in the morning and then be in a rush to get to the Sunday school service is not my wife's fault for taking too long to get ready. It's not my kid's fault for not knowing how to get ready. Turns out it's my fault because I've not set those guidelines to help this home succeed. It's my fault for not using my authority correctly, not to yell, hurry up in the morning, but to man up and say, hey, I know it's not that late, but let's go to sleep. I know this is fun. This is all fun that we're watching a movie or whatever we're doing the night before, but we have to do this tomorrow. So let's go to sleep, or let's get these things taken care of so that we have more time later in the week, anything like that. So if my daughter lacks understanding, like I said, in her still developing social skills, I can't blame her if I want to be a godly man. I have to look at myself and ask myself if I've taken the time to explain these things to her, if I've taken the time to answer her questions and help her understand what the right time and place for all of these things are, or am I just gonna take the easy way out and blame? It might seem unfair to imply we ought to always blame ourselves, but if we are looking at it through God's eyes, that's the authority he's given us. That's the role of the authority he's given us, that we understand where the blame goes. We're supposed to do all we possibly can to lead our homes to the best possible outcome. So even though it's hard, I have to take the time to better explain to my daughter why it's rude not to answer a question when you're being asked, why it's not always okay to tell someone that you don't like their food, or why sometimes we just have to learn to sit still for some time. And that in those situations, if she doesn't know why I'm asking her to do something, that there's a time and a place where she can ask me all the questions she has, but then I have to make sure that I actually do answer all of her questions, and I do set some time aside to talk about these things with her so she knows that she can trust me. So what I hope I'm addressing in this episode is a whole notion of saying or thinking, well, because I'm the parent, or because I'm the man, or because I'm in charge. In so many cases, this is used as a justification, or as if it were an actual reason, which it's not. It's just a justification. But in reality, it's the reason that we're to blame. So irresponsible men, or irresponsible parents for that matter, continue to be irresponsible and undisciplined. And instead of seeking help and or guidance and taking in the opinion or advice of others, they think that they're just supposed to know or they're supposed to just figure it out themselves or do it their own way. But again, you weren't put in charge because you have all the answers or you're the smartest or wisest. That's not why you were put in charge. You were put in charge so that if something goes wrong, everybody knows that it's your fault. It's on you. But that also means that when it all goes right, you should and can be proud of knowing that you succeeded. So if you feel overwhelmed, don't be afraid to reach out. If you don't have it all figured out, that's okay too. I think that most of us don't have it all figured out, but as long as we're trying to get our kids to be successful and we're trying to steer our families to a better place in the right direction toward God and toward honesty and righteousness, then we're using our authority correctly. When you look at it from this angle, it's a lot more about serving, and it really is a lot of work. But I know that you can do it because you're the man. If you have any differing opinions, ideas, comments on anything I said right now, or if there's anything that I can expand on, I'd be happy to. Please reach out, let me know. And I think that's it for now from me. God bless you.